Good evening and welcome to tonight's regular meeting of the Board of Education. The meeting is called to order at 4:01 p.m. Roll call, please.
Student Board Member Lynch, Ms. Armstrong, Dr. Alhessen,
Present.
Mrs. Garza,
Present.
Ms. Stewart,
Present.
Mr. Critchfield.
Present. Tonight, we do have requests addressing closed session agenda items. While meetings of the board are not public meetings, they are open to the public. Individual speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda item and non-agenda item. The board will limit the total time for public input on each item to 21 minutes as per board bylaw 9322.2. May I have Maria Mott to the podium, please?
Hello, I am here on the matter of the Kiwanis Hall. I am a current Kiwanian member, but furthermore, I was a product of the Bellflower Unified School District, where the Kiwana Hall provided me many opportunities. I served at the hall serving families from Bellflower Unified School District. I fed multiple families for different occasions. I served at pancake breakfasts. I served across the board. We did many district meetings there, district events for Key Club that I was part of. And then I also, from graduating from Bellflower Unified, I received a $10,000 scholarship to continue my education through the Kiwanis Hall. So the Kiwanis Hall is very near and dear to my heart, which is why now that I am at a point in my life I can give back to these Bellflower students. It is important to me to join Kiwanis and keep that relationship with the Bellflower Unified School District and their students. And that's all I have.
Thank you. I don't want to mispronounce the name. Christina. I know you did. I see it.
It
There's
looks
even
like Fruniacs, but it sounds like Fruno.
Let me put a
So-
smiley face.
Yeah, I did
Please.
my best to help you.
Welcome.
Hi. Okay, so my name is Christina Fruno. I'm a proud Kiwanian. First of all, did you know that the Kiwanis Club is responsible for the flag on the freeway? And we maintain that. We update it. It's expensive. It's beautiful, and it's a part of Bellflower, and it's not free. That's from the Kiwanis. I want to reach out and add my voice to the voices that you're going to hear regarding the upcoming agenda item concerning the rents on the Kiwanis Club. Have you had a chance or an opportunity to read the history of the Kiwanis Club? It's available online. If you haven't, you should. It's really fun. There's cool names in there, all kinds of fun details, and it's actually interesting. You should read it. And I think that's a document that speaks for itself about the history and the value that Kiwanis has in the community, and it will maybe enlighten you as well. Additionally, the Kiwanis Clubhouse is the Girl Scout Hall. The school district uses the building at numerous times during the year. Somerset uses the clubhouse for their community Thanksgiving dinner, and these organizations and groups have use of the building at no cost at all. And all of the maintenance on the building plus utilities are paid for by the Kiwanis, and that's not nothing. Finally, I know you're aware, but are you? I'd like to reiterate that the Kiwanis give scholarships every single year, usually around $20,000. Also, that's giving back. That's monetary value that we do that we can't do if our coffers are chipped into. It's important. As a proud Kiwanian, I truly hope that the board will ultimately agree that the current rents paid for the use of the building should remain the same, so as not to negatively impact our ability to have a positive presence within the Bellflower community. The relationships and connections that the Kiwanis have built and maintain in the Bellflower community are priceless. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I have Wendy Morris? Welcome.
Hi. Okay, my name's Wendy Morse. I am a volunteer secretary for the Bellflower Kiwanis. All of our members are volunteers. I am the mother of a Mayfair High School student, and I am here to address item 3.7 on the closed session agenda. I'd like to ask that careful consideration be made when you discuss the terms of the land lease for the Kiwanis building. The building is owned and maintained by the Kiwanis Club, but the building is mostly used by BUSD students. The building is mostly used by BUSD students. And the efforts of Bellflower Kiwanis are geared towards our students and the Bellflower community. All utilities, gas, water, we have a separate meter, trash, electricity, a building upkeep are all paid by our club. The school does not incur those costs, or the district. We meet on Fridays, our Kiwanis Club itself, and most of our efforts are fundraising to serve the students of Bellflower, and more specifically, BUSD students. We give out $20,000 to $30,000 a year in scholarships to BUSD students, or Bellflower kids in general. The Kiwanis motto is to serve the children of the world, but the Bellflower Kiwanians serve the children of Bellflower. We fundraise every Friday and do additional fundraising to give those scholarships. We work with the early childhood development every Thanksgiving and Christmas and donate holiday gifts and food baskets, and more recently, gift cards to 50 families at each holiday. We support the different campus clubs when they have special requests. For example, one year Laugh Club needed help with renting a special wheelchair for a student to be able to participate in a trip to Catalina Island. We donated the money. The ensemble groups, Mayfair, Bellflower High, come sing a special program for us. We donate to their causes so they can do their special things they need to do. There's so much more. I don't have enough time, obviously. The Girl Scouts have their own portion of rooms inside the hall that they use at their discretion at no charge and have never paid, do not have to. They hold events in the main hall if needed, and this also serves the students of Bellflower. Somerset High School uses the building when they need to. Again, no charge. Our key clubs use the building for many activities and meetings throughout the year, also no charge. I believe every one of the board members knows one of us or all of us and has access to our personal phone numbers. I please ask that you guys have any questions, please call us. Myra has my permission to give my phone number out to anybody. Please do. If you guys want to ask a question, if I don't know the answer, I will gladly get the answer. I would really like you guys to just consider what we do for the community and our students as a collaborative, even though we're not a part of BUSD specifically. And I just thank you guys for your time. Look, I did that in under 3 minutes.
Great job. Great job. Thank you. Rita Rivera, come on up.
Good afternoon, President Critchfield, board members, Superintendent Acevedo, and administration. Did you know that, as the ladies already stated, Girl Scouts does have a room in the Kiwanis building? We occupy about a quarter, I would say, of the building. Our room was dedicated to us in 1949. It'll be 75 years this year. We occupy that small space, and our use of Kiwanis has always been a safe and secure meeting place for Girl Scouts. I'm a Girl Scout leader serving girls in the Bellflower Unified School District for 38 years, and I've helped guide the leaders of the Bellflower Girl Scout Service Unit since 2000. Kiwanis has always supported our Bellflower Girl Scouts to allow the use of the larger room also, which we are so happy to have, when we were unable to secure free or low-cost rooms for big events through the city of Bellflower. So we are provided free of charge our smaller room for Girl Scout and adult meetings. We have trainings, we have Girl Scout STEAM activities, yearly cultural events, cookie kickoffs, and so much more. We work hard to introduce the next generation of girl leaders to new experiences as they explore their community. Before COVID, troops were able to hold meetings in school cafeterias, but that's all changed. Due to security, safety of our children, and all of the after-school programs such as Think Together and YMC that are now in our school buildings and cafeterias. Many of our Bellflower troops are low income. The Girl Scouts of Greater Los Angeles has a program that provides for all new troops that are formed in Bellflower. They receive the first year of registration for all the girls and the leaders free. They receive uniforms, badges, books, and so much more for their families at no cost to begin their Girl Scout troop. We currently have over 100 girls that meet periodically in the Girl Scout room. Some meet weekly, some meet bi-weekly. Without the use of Kiwanis for meetings and events, we would not be able to provide the Girl Scout program for girls in our Bellflower School District community, and we greatly appreciate the support and generosity that Kiwanis gives us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dan Coops, come on up. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for allowing me to address the school board. I've never done this before. I've been on the other side, so this is kind of fun. It's a building, and you're holding all the cards because it's on the school district's dirt. That building was brought in here, as was said, 1949. It was a barracks mess hall in San Pedro, and they trucked it in here and put it together. I read the history here. It's a $50,000 project and was financed by all the Kiwanians. There's about 50 members, and they each gave about $1,000 to finance that. So it's always been a local venue. I'm reminded of the things that happened when the school district needed to use what once was the Rotary Hall behind you, and that was the Boy Scout Hall, Sonny Williams Boy Scout Hall, named after a war veteran who died giving his life for the community in World War II. And the Rotary Club still exists, although without a building to call their own, they now have their meetings in Cerritos at Rosewood Restaurant. So kind of lose the flavor. Many of the meetings that I go to over there as an honorary member, 12, 13 people attend. Kind of cut the heart out of that club when they lost their building. It's true that all service clubs, churches, anybody that met together, the attendance is down from having before the pandemic. We're all trying to recover from that. But this hall is so important to us in the sense that you've heard, and I don't need to reiterate what was said about the use, how it's been used for the Girl Scouts and for the Bellflower for the Somerset School over here. And throughout the community, you're going to hear in a little bit here from the high schoolers whose clubs are sponsored, the Leo Club, not the Leo, the Kiwanettes, the Key Clubs. So you'll hear from that. But it's just an important part of the fabric of our community that I think we'd like to maintain and continue to use. And hopefully you guys will come up with a deal that's not unlike what we already have. Mr. Dutton mentioned to me that paperwork is hard to come by on this building, so we're kind of flying by the seat of our pants as to what to do next. But I don't think we're looking for a giveaway. We're just looking to maintain what we have and be able to continue to be an important part of the Bellflower community. And I think we're all better off for having that hall here. And like was said earlier, the school district has no expense on it. We paint it, we maintain it, we roof it, we electrify it, we plumb it, we pay the water bill. It's just there for the public to use. So I would just hate to put that in jeopardy if we were having to pay an exorbitant amount of money for the lease that's really a bargain now, but it's a gift to the community, and the community receives it well and uses it well, and it makes Bellflower a better place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ray Dunton. Welcome.
Let me try not to be repetitive here. So I'm going to pick apart some of this stuff, and then I'm going to add some lib. Introduce myself. I'm Ray Dunton, resident of Bellflower, 65 plus years. My kids are products of the Bellflower Unified School District. I landed my business here in Bellflower 35 years ago. I'm pretty much community involved, as everyone is aware. Joined the Kiwanis Club in, I think, 1989. And it's funny that I never thought I could have time for lunch starting my business. And one day I got talked into it and enjoyed it. And just going to that clubhouse and saying a prayer or saying the Pledge of Allegiance once a day, once a week, and it meant a lot. And it's like, wow, I haven't done that since high school or school, and I used to do it then. But it was very, very rewarding. And then I got to know a lot of people in the clubhouse, and older people that have been around for a while, and you talk and learn from them, and you find out what it's all about. And it was not a secret that the Kiwanis owned that building, but it was always says we own the building. It's on school district property, and you always heard that we were partners way back then. In 1947 is when the vision came to do it. I would say it's before these offices were here, and somehow somebody wanted to talk enough about putting the building there and bringing the Girl Scouts in, because the Girl Scouts were just losing their building that was at Sims Park location that got condemned. And so they had a vision to bring it in. And, In 1960, the club wanted to start a foundation to try to get a nonprofit organization going. And with the Girl Scouts there, that was able to do that. It was one of the first foundations ever issued by California. And so we had a foundation. And it's actually called on our corporate documents for the foundation is the Girl Scouts Kiwanis Hall. And they've been there for a long time. And I'd hate to see that in jeopardy of rent going up or whatever. And not that the school district gets nothing return for letting us have that property at a very discounted rate and well appreciated. But the work that comes out of there to let youth grow, it's all about youth. That's what you guys are up there for. It's about educating the youth and giving them something extra. We work very hard. We have 5 key clubs, both high schools, St. Joseph's, Bosco, and we took on GAR a couple years ago. It's quite expensive to have those kids. And we raise money. As Mr. Coop said, the problem is that the pandemic took all the memberships back of everything. Took the donations down too. There's less money. There's less money to do things. We try to do a lot more with less, just like everybody else. And the club is not a cash cow for the Kiwanis. The club is there for all demographics to use. Thank you very much.
You're good? There's always a heckler in the crowd. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Jason Barnett. Welcome.
Hi, I just want to thank you for letting us come and speak about this. I'm the hall chair, so I take care of the hall when stuff breaks, like when the tree fell. I make sure I get everybody come fix stuff to make sure it's safe for us on the school district property. I also enforce our rules too, right? So like anybody that uses the hall, they know there's no alcohol allowed. There's none of that stuff allowed to go on. If anybody gets caught doing that stuff, they're never allowed to use anything again. And just kind of piggyback on what he was saying about, I was the president of the year of the pandemic came out. And, since then we've been trying to recuperate, right? Because we didn't have our major fundraiser, which usually paid for our scholarships. So for 2 years, we ran on a negative budget, pulling from our reserves. We're just now starting to get back into fundraising time where they let us again. So, I just want you guys to keep that in consideration that, we're coming out of a rough time and we are building back up. We got new members coming in, getting excited to work with our kids in Bellflower Unified School District. And I just want that to be in consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Kimberly Barnett, come on up. Welcome.
Thank you. And sorry, I literally drove from downtown like a mad woman to get here on time. My name's Kimberly Barnett. I am the current president of the Bellflower Kiwanis Club, and I want to just say thank you for allowing us some of your time. So I'm here today to request you're going to hear a lot of great things about Bellflower Kiwanis from a lot of people, but I'm here to formally request that you pull this agenda item, allow us to come in front of you with a formal presentation of exactly everything that we do, and then take that information that many people want to contribute to, allow us to present to you, and then come back. That's my formal request. I can tell you beautiful things about Kiwanis. I can tell you beautiful things about what we do with the hall, what the hall is used for. There's a lot of history. There's endless documents of beautiful events that have been held there. Many people who grew up there. I personally have benefited from Bellflower Kiwanis and the hall in many ways. And so my formal request is that you just pull this agenda item today, allow us to come in front of you as a club to present exactly what we do in a formal way, and then come back and discuss this further. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Buggy Mira. Is that right? Close. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for your time.
Hello.
My name is Bug Mira. I currently serve as Mayfair Key Club's president for this term. I've been in Key Club since I was a sophomore, and my first event was actually at the hall. And so I've had very fond memories of this hall for like all of my high school years, and it's always been a place of like a home and a safe place for me. There's so many people that I've met through there, and of course I've met our wonderful advisor, and it's just a really nice place to be all the time. I understand that if there is a rent raise, there's more money towards the hall, which takes away from our sponsorship fundings. With our sponsorship fundings is the only way that I've been able to go to other events and meet new people and expand my leadership skills, my education, and just my view on this world. So I just please hope that you please realize that this hall means a lot to us. Although I am a senior and I will be graduating, I think I'll always see this hall as a way of knowing that I've met so many people. And for my past members and my members coming up, I still hope that they can also see this hall as a great sanctuary and just a place to be themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Mia Garcia. Welcome.
Hello everyone, my name is Mia Garcia and I proudly serve as Bellflower Key Club's president. I grew up here in Bellflower since I was very young, and I attended Ernie Pyle Elementary School and on to Bellflower, and Bellflower is my home to me, and I haven't felt such a sense of community until I joined Key Club, which to me was so helpful because over the years I became shyer and shyer, and I never thought I'd be the president, but here I am. And I'm so thankful for all the opportunities that the hall was able to give me. For example, there's no other place. We meet up at parks or however, but when we meet up at the hall, it feels like I'm at home. It's such a beautiful experience that it offers us, and I ask for the agenda to be pulled because it also puts in jeopardy scholarships. As a senior, I'm looking into entering universities, and I know a lot of other students in the future are as well. And if this agenda isn't pulled, it could take away scholarships that could benefit us a lot. I really do believe that Kiwanis is such a blessing to me, to my family, to the community. It's such a beautiful experience seeing other students younger than me who started off exactly how I was. And I want them to be able to experience the experience I had. It's something so beautiful. And this hall needs to remain, and I really hope everybody can experience everything that it has to offer. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mia. And we are approaching our 21-minute time limit, but we do have one more, so we're going to go ahead with it. And I'm not even going to try this one. Is that, yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. If you could.
Thank you.
If you could start with your name for me.
Yes. So my name is Elsie Malyari Nash. I am the chair of the Service Leadership Program, past president in 1999-2000, and also lieutenant governor of Kiwanis in 2001-2002. In that time frame, technically since 1996, I've actually worked as an advisor for impacting about 2,000 students or more every year. So if we do the math on that, that's like tens of thousands of students in the footsteps of Don Howard, who is my mentor. So this definitely has made an impact. Our club has made an impact for a lot of these key clubbers. They've moved on to as high as even an international trustee. We have one from Mayfair. Her name's Alyssa Klein. And then we have a lot of lieutenant governors that I personally work with as a region advisor. And all of them impact, in terms of leadership, about 10 to 15 high school presidents every single year. So one of the things I put there on behalf of Anna Tamayo, she is currently the incoming lieutenant governor of Division 13 North, which is housed in this area, and a lot of their meetings take place at Bellflower Kiwanis Hall. So this is kind of a statement that she made She said, to whom it may concern, which of course is you, it has come to my attention that the Bellflower Unified School District has come to an agreement to raise the rent of the Bellflower Kiwanis Hall to the current market rate of City of Bellflower. With my earnest respect, the decision to raise the rent to market price will be detrimental to the local communities that use the hall. As an officer of St. Joseph Key Club and a member of the Kiwanis family, I have been able to call the Bellflower Kiwanis Hall my second home. I have spent most of my high school making friends and memories in the hall and continue to actively recognize it as a place where all are welcome to be themselves to celebrate community service. The Kiwanis branch of the Kiwanis family has been so generous to their Key Club relatives, welcoming us to use their space as a place of gathering and community. They have been by my side throughout my Key Club journey, showing their generosity and aspirations to serve the youth. The Kiwanis branch inspires me to continue serving the local community through their constant support of the youth. They believe that in order to build a better future, you have to uplift the youth. With every interaction I have with them, they constantly display their selfless servant leadership. Key Club would not be the global organization without the support of our Kiwanians. Bellflower Key Club has tirelessly worked, I think she meant Kiwanis, to support their chartered clubs and sponsoring several clubs from Division 13 North. Officers and Kiwanis advisors from Bellflower are constantly taking action to help guide and support the youth in their service activities. In a nutshell, okay, I'm gonna have to just go right to the end. Personally, this has allowed her to serve several members of Key Club and attend Kiwanis-sponsored events such as the district convention and Key Leader. Please reconsider your decision in this thing, and thank you for your time. I have to condense it at the end.
Thank you. No, you did a great, you did a great job. You did a
Thank
great
you
job.
so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for your consideration.
Of course. Well, thank you everyone that spoke tonight, and more importantly, thank you for everything that you do for the community. The board will now adjourn to closed session. Item 3.7, real property negotiations involving real property at 9302 Laurel Street, Bellflower, California, 90706. Our lead negotiator for the district will be our general counsel, matter involving terms of lease. Thank you. We'll now reconvene to open session at 5:58 p.m. to resume our regular order of business. Board Clerk Myra Garza will provide an update on closed session topics.
Tonight, the Board of Education discussed the topics of student matters, pending litigation, anticipated litigation, labor negotiations, public employee discipline, dismissal, and release. The board took action in closed session to approve student expulsion case 24-17-0006.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. A replacement page for item 12.5 is on the back table. Tonight, we do not have requests addressing agenda, non-agenda items. Do you have any corrections to the evening's agenda?
We do not have any corrections.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call Technology Support Manager, Mr. Steve Lociano, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mr. President, if I could, in closed session, real property negotiations was also discussed, but no action was taken.
Got that? Do I have to say it? Oh.
We also discussed real property negotiations, but no action was taken.
Good
Thank
evening.
you, Council.
Oh, sorry.
Floor is yours.
Good evening. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Steve. It is now time for BTA, CSEA, and PTA communications. CSEA and PTA do not have a report tonight, but we have BTA President. Is Carrie here? No? Okay.
I do not see her.
So we do not have presentation from them tonight. Tonight, Mr. Victor Sanchez and Mr. Bill Cinco from the Community Family Guidance Center have a presentation for the board. Welcome.
And President Critchfield, I believe they also have Hillary Sherman Wicks, who's also joining this evening.
Yes, thank you, Superintendent. Good evening, Board President and members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here this evening with you. Thank you for the correction, Superintendent. I just want to take a quick little moment to introduce myself. As you know, I'm very familiar with this community. I've born and raised in Bellflower, very involved and very active. And one of the things that I care most about is our children in our community and how we're transforming their lives. And so I am a proud employee of Community Family Guidance Center. It's a children's mental health nonprofit. And with me tonight, I have Bill Cinco, our executive director, and Hillary Sherman Wicks, who's in charge of our programs and supervises all our mental health programs and training. So just want to hand it off to him and say thank you for having us this evening.
Well, good evening, and it's an honor to be here. And just want to say thank you so much for everything you do for our kids here in Bellflower and the community at large, and all the time and effort you put in. It's greatly appreciated. Let me see if I can figure this thing out. There we go. It's working. Great. I would just like to start off with talking a little bit about the agency, give you a little background on the agency, cover the mission statement first. Our mission is to help Southeast Los Angeles County underserved children and their families heal from trauma, abuse, emotional, behavioral, and mental health issues through proven interventions and compassionate guidance. We serve a lot of underserved kids. In fact, that's all we do, is the underserved community. Our history is such that okay, there we go. It's moving now, Victor, thanks. There was a real need back in the early 70s for mental health therapy for kids in particular, especially in the Hawaiian Gardens area, and the Department of Mental Health was getting a lot of phone calls for services, but there was not an agency in the area that could handle those things. So the Department of Mental Health contacted the closest agency, which was up in Whittier, Inter-Community Child Guidance Center, and they asked if they could go open up an office in the Hawaiian Gardens area, which they agreed to do. They sent 5 staff members to that office in Hawaiian Gardens, and that office was quickly overran with clients. And this was back in the stone tablet age where there was no email or internet or anything like that. It was a little bit difficult for inter-community to manage both. They had their own thing going on, so they suggested to the Department of Mental Health that a new agency is formed in this area that can serve this area in the Southeast Los Angeles County area. So that's how we were born. In 1976, we got our nonprofit status, 501c3, and we moved from that office in Hawaiian Gardens just after a couple of years to our main office, which is located next to the Cerritos Auto Mall, and started serving the communities in the SPA 7 area with a Department of Mental Health contract serving mostly Medi-Cal kids ages 0 through 21. We are considered a specialty mental health in that all of our clients are children. We don't see adults. Community Family Guidance Center today is 70 staff members strong. 53 are clinical, 17 are support staff. We have 1 board-certified child psychiatrist who handles our medications, and we have 16 volunteer board members. We are now providing 30 to 40,000 clinical hours a year to the people that we serve. We're seeing 450 to 500 kids per week, and we're doing all this out of 2 offices, one in Cerritos and one in the city of Downey. But a lot of our work is also being done in the field. We're doing a lot of work at the schools and in clients' homes as well. We're now serving about 28 cities in the SPA 7 area. Our services include prevention and early intervention is one of our programs. Early intervention is directed as to children that who are having their first contact, if you will, or interaction with a mental health system. And then we also have our outpatient mental health services program, which typically one session a week in the home or in the community or at our office is being utilized to help these individuals, and we'll do individual, family, collateral, and group sessions with them. Under this program, we also have what we call standard outpatient treatment, family preservation, hey, I said it, and specialized foster care. We also run an intensive outpatient program. This is for our more crisis cases, if you will. It's for clients who are experiencing severe emotional, behavioral, social, and environmental challenges, and may be in crisis or experiencing high-risk behaviors such as self-harm. I would like to just detour a little bit and say, prior to COVID, the number of crisis cases we were handling was about 22% of our caseload. Since COVID, and then this last year, it was about 50%. So the COVID really did affect our kids out there. So just wanted to let you know about that. Typically in place to help avoid a higher level of care either in their living situation or in their educational placement. We're usually the place they send them to try to keep them from being committed to a hospital in this particular program, or we're catching them when they're coming out of the hospital. Sessions are frequently done multiple times a week, and our staff does a lot of these sessions field-based in the homes, which I actually prefer because it allows them to go in and see the environment that they're living in and maybe address some things that need to be addressed in that particular environment. Also, our clinicians in that particular program are on call 24/7 for the clients that we serve in that particular program. So, the diagnosis and things that we treat include anxiety, depression, oppositional defiant disorder, conduct disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and I would like to note that we're kind of known for our trauma work. We're really good at what we do with trauma, and about 80% of our kids involve some kind of trauma. I kind of wanted to cover the city stats, not the Bellflower Unified School District stats real quickly with you. As you can see, we, through the years from 2015 up to 2020, we kind of held between 11 and 13% of all the work that we did were clients from Bellflower. But if you notice in the last couple of years, that's basically doubled, and 23% of our caseload now is coming from the city of Bellflower. Bellflower is now our #1 client draw city out of all the cities that we serve. In July of 2021, we entered into a contract with Bellflower Unified School District to meet the mental health needs of the students within the district here. Part of our task was to create a BUSD wellness program, which we did. We dedicated 3 licensed therapists to the program. And in this past year, we actually had 8 interns as part of the program as well, helping out. These therapists that are dedicated are here full-time, and they're seeing students in office space provided by the Bellflower Unified School District. And the students that we're seeing are referred to us by the staff. So at this time, I'm going to have the director of the wellness program at BUSD, Hillary Sherman Wicks, come up and present on the actual work that we do in the district. Hillary?
Here, you need that. Yeah, I need that. Hello, and thanks again for the opportunity to share our program. We've been really excited. It's been a really wonderful partnership, and we really feel privileged to be able to serve the children and the teenagers and really try to help them be as successful as they can at school. So just a little bit about myself. I've been a licensed clinical social worker for many years, been with the agency for many years, and worked with kids, children, and families, and in charge of overseeing the program, providing the supervision and the coordination at the district level. And then we're really fortunate, as Bill mentioned, to have 3 really awesome therapists. They've become licensed during the process, and Jasleen Roblero, some of you may have met her. She is our coordinator for the day-to-day operations, and she directly supervises the interns. We have increased. We started out with 3 interns, and then due to the need over the years, we've increased, so now we have 8, and she supervises 7 of the 8 interns. We also have 2 other full-time therapists, as Bill mentioned, Natalie Gomez, and she's stationed at Somerset, and Ramona, and she's also available for Bay Center when they have needs. And then Beatrice Diaz is at Mayfair full-time, and she also supervising one of our interns. So they are staying pretty busy. They're both bilingual and have provided services all 3 years. And both of them have also helped with training the interns and helping to provide that additional support that they need. Let's see. And just to kind of do highlights of some of the services that we provide. Really at the beginning, we're doing a lot of outreach and engagement. When we get referrals, we're reaching out to parents and families, explaining our services, answering questions. We also have been going to the open houses and back to school nights just to be visible and let people know about what we do. Again, answer any questions, get to meet the community, which has been really nice. We also do some mental health screenings at the very beginning, which include parents and students and staff just to really identify what the main concerns are, and also to be sure that our services are really going to be a good match. If it looks like we might need something outside, then we do our case management, linkage, and referral, and we just link families to appropriate outside resources. And then the bulk of what we do is really individual counseling. We do some group, but we really focus on skill building and really try to bolster students. Often some of the social and emotional challenges that they have are getting in the way of their success. And so our goal is really to sort of help them build those skills and really build on the strengths that they do have. And so the most common things that we get referrals for would be just general emotional regulation, anger management, anxiety, a lot of stress, depression, grief and loss. So those are probably the biggest, and then social skills, really having trouble getting along with their peers and problem solving. So that's been the focus, and then we do have some small groups at some of the schools. We really try to tailor to what the schools need. And then we do want to support parents. So we have done some parenting seminars. We had, and basically this is per, the topics are per request of different schools. So we've done on grief and loss and English and Spanish. We've done one on stress management, how parents can help support their students. And we also just general presentations on our services. So definitely want to include parents. Go back. Also, we've done consultation once we do have students or in the process of getting referrals. We want to really coordinate with school staff. So we've worked with teachers, with school counselors, with case managers, really to provide some support and ideas on interventions and really ensure everyone has all the information that they need to best work with the student. And then we've been available for any teacher presentations or trainings on social emotional issues. We're happy to really provide and share knowledge and how to best support students in the classroom. And then last, we've done some classroom presentations. I know at Mayfair we had really a school-wide presentation on stress management. 2 of our therapists provided. And then last year, some of the interns did presentations on grit and resiliency, vaping, those kinds of topics. And currently, one of our interns is doing presentations at ILC on emotional regulation and stress management. So really, it just depends on what the schools are requesting. And we do have the option for sort of more in-depth services. When we call therapy versus counseling, therapy is really looking at things at a deeper level, really looking at root causes a bit more than just coping skills. And so we do have that option if needed for individual therapy or family therapy with like a student focus. And currently, we're in 13 schools. We've also provided in the Bay Center as well, so 13 of the 14. Over the years, our referrals have definitely increased. We started out the first year. It was an interesting year. This was the year that we came back from the pandemic. So everything was there were lots of questions about how things are going to work, what the needs are going to be, and so that was a really interesting year, and I think really helpful for us to be able to provide services. And then over the years, the referrals have increased. Last year was 174, and then currently to date, we've had about 140. And currently in services, about 95 to 100 students are being served. So I think that's all that I have. I'll turn it back over to Bill.
Thank you. So I just kind of want to summarize what we're doing in the district here. We successfully put together a program for the district, and we implemented it, and we've been running it. One of the things that we wanted to do was make sure that there weren't any bleed over. In other words, if they had Medi-Cal, we would take them and serve them under the agency's Medi-Cal contract and not under the contract that Bellflower Unified has provided, because obviously, why do that, right? You know, let the county pay for it. And so we made sure that that was a priority, and we've accomplished that goal over the 3 years that we've been doing. As you can see by the numbers, and the stats alone prove that. One of the other things is that we've had continuity. I've had the same therapist from day one working on site, and that's been a big plus, I think, for the program as well. We continue to increase the number of students that we see. We've continued to increase the number of presentations that we're doing, and it's just been a really good working relationship. We love being able to support the district and the goals of the district, and that's what we're here for. We're here to support you guys and be a help to you guys and bring some professional mental health therapy into the district that might be utilized by you all. So I wanted to just ask and see if you had any questions, and I'm going to pull Hillary back up here because anything clinical she can answer better than me, probably.
Dr. Sue?
Thank you for the presentation, and thank you what you do for our kids. I wanted to find out from a behavioral perspective, for self-regulation, a lot of our kids and a lot of teachers often ask, that's what a lot of behavioral issues sometimes stem from. Do you use biofeedback for that with them?
I didn't hear the first part
The self-regulation.
For self-regulation.
Here, come to the mic.
Oh, yeah. No, we don't have a specific biofeedback device, but we do really use a lot of the mind-body connection in terms of relaxation and things like that, and self-awareness. But we don't have like a specific machine or something like that.
Not necessarily a machine, but for students and learning to identify triggers before it kind of escalates at that point.
Oh, yeah, no, we definitely are helping them to identify internally sort of what's going on, and then also externally. And so that's definitely a big part of helping them to figure things out and intervene early before it really escalates.
And do you do a lot of CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, for our kids? And what age groups are you mostly seeing from ours?
It's really a range, anywhere from kindergarten, and we do have a few TK all the way through seniors. So we pretty much cover the whole range.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sue. And truth be told, we didn't put it on the agenda as a discussion item, but I do want to say I appreciate everything you guys do, and I'm amazed at the work you do for the kids, and I'm also amazed that you're able to work with this guy. It seems you, and I do have some questions, but I'm gonna go ahead and email them over.
Okay.
But Ms. Garza?
Thank you, President Critchfield. I just wanted to say thank you. Bottom of my heart, our kids are so much better, in a better place. You know, we're definitely having those gaps filled that were needed to be filled. I can say that in the district that I work at, this does not occur. And so I am very appreciative that our board members have decided to do this, so that way our kids do have those services. Thank you.
I appreciate the wisdom of the board to bring in a 48-year-old mental health. You know, we know what we're doing, and you guys brought us in to help, and I think that's awesome. You know, not all the districts are doing that, so you guys are ahead of the game as far as I'm concerned.
We truly appreciate the partnership. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All All right, before we move on to superintendent report, I did see Miss Carrie McDaniel. If it's okay, council, can we still fit in the Carrie, did you have a yeah? Okay. All you.
Guess I just snuck in, sorry. Good evening, Board President Critchfield, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Azevedo, members of the cabinet, and guests. Tonight on the agenda is the public hearing on BTA Sunshine Over contract. I spent the last few months talking to Dr. Drotti about bargaining and the importance of understanding that bargaining doesn't mean that we get everything we ask for, just as the district doesn't get everything it asks for. It's a give and take. BTA has spent the last few months gathering information from our members about things in our contract that we need to change and things that we need to add. As we embark on this bargaining journey that starts tonight, I hope that we can all agree that our students' learning conditions are our working conditions, and employees and working conditions cost money. We sit here every month, read the board book, watch presentations, and we know that it costs money to run this district. But we also know that budgets can be revised based on need. So when our bargaining team sit down to discuss items, I hope that we keep that in mind. A friend of mine once said to me that a budget speaks to one's values and priorities. Improving teacher morale also improves student morale. I hope we bargain this year in good faith, each group coming to the table with needs and wants and working through them in a respectful and collaborative manner. It is, after all, what we tell our students about how bargaining works. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you so much. And it's now time for superintendent's report. Ms. Azevedo.
Thank you. So tonight we've included in our board items a resolution to celebrate and recognize our Public School Volunteer Week, April 15th through the 19th. So I wanted to share that last week I had the privilege of participating in the Caring Connections Collaborative meeting, which is a group dedicated to serving children and families of the Bellflower Unified School District. The organization is committed to enhancing student attendance and academic achievement while offering vital community resources and support to those in need. Many individuals that work with the various members of the collaborative are volunteers. The collaborative offers an array of essential services, including academic assistance programs, crisis shelter resources, access to mental and dental care, nutritional support, and transportation services. Witnessing the breadth of the agencies present alongside our dedicated Bellflower Unified School District case managers was inspiring. It's a large group. Business and community partners play a pivotal role in our school district, providing support not only to our families, but also to our staff by assisting our students. Their collaboration ensures that students receive the critical resources necessary for their success, which might otherwise be lacking without such intervention. I'm thankful for the 93 organizations listed in the Collaborative's resource guide for their unwavering support in our mission to equip students with the skills and resources they need to thrive as global competitive citizens. Thank you to our administrative team who participates with this collaborative, Tia Ewing and Mrs. Bonnie Carter, as well as the Caring Connections Executive Board and their president, Nicole McGahee. I'd also like to take this moment to remind our families that spring break is right around the corner. So please enjoy a restful time with family and friends, March 29th through April 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Azevedo. And right back to you. It is now time for discussion items.
Yes, this evening we have a discussion item on the California Voters' Right Act. At this time, I'll turn it over to our legal counsel, Mr. Sariaga.
This evening, we're going to have a presentation from NDC, National Demographics Corporation. They've been instrumental in helping a lot of districts and cities through this process. I would qualify them as the premier experts in this process. In my city of La Mirada, we use them for both our initial district creations and the redistricting that occurred after the census. And they're here tonight to provide a presentation for the board as to the demographics of the city and the possible need to go to a district-based election. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Justin Levitt.
Good evening, President Critchfield, members of the board, and members of the community, and thank you for that introduction. My name is Dr. Justin Levitt with National Demographics Corporation. And I'll just mention that in addition to La Mirada, we also worked with the cities of Bellflower and Lakewood on their transition to districts, and with Bellflower on their redistricting. So we have combined total between me and my fellow employees at National Demographics, hundreds of hours. Okay, there we go. So what we're here to discuss tonight is looking at the different methods of election used to elect the Board of Trustees. And I'll just start by saying this is really nothing to do with the attendance areas where the children go to school or the board's fiduciary responsibility to all residents within the district. What we're talking about is a law that deals with electing the Board of Trustees only, and particularly concerns itself with that method of election. Traditionally, most cities in California used an at-large system of election, like the district does now, where any board member could live anywhere within the district. All board members would elect, or all residents of the city would elect a certain number of board members each election cycle, and basically each board member would be electorally responsible to the entire district. This was perhaps by far the most common system used in California up till about 10, 15 years ago. And the reason for a lot of the change is because of a law called the California Voting Rights Act. The California Voting Rights Act was written to encourage by trustee area, or sometimes called by district election. And it's a system we are familiar with because we use it to elect members to Congress, the state legislature, county board of supervisors, and many other elections that we participate in. Essentially, the district would be broken up into equally populated trustee areas. Each trustee area would have a representative that lives within that area, and the residents within that area would select that trustee area. There are other systems, like a from district or from trustee area system. So perhaps you might have heard of things like ranked choice voting or other systems that have been proposed. To date, from trustee area or the from district system has been considered an at-large system, since elections, that's where a candidate has to live in an area, but all city residents or all district residents vote on that position. That's still considered at-large for the purposes of the CVRA. And to date, most of the counties have basically said they can't implement most of the alternative systems that have been proposed, like ranked choice voting, including Los Angeles County. And so under the California Voting Rights Act, if you use at-large elections, you are potentially vulnerable to a challenge. If you have a by-district or by-trustee area election system, you are in a safe harbor from challenge under the California Voting Rights Act. And the California Voting Rights Act is a law that's specifically written concerning protected class communities, like the Federal Voting Rights Act, to ensure that groups that have historically faced discrimination or barriers to registration and voting have their voting rights protected. However, unlike federal law, it actually makes the standard for going to court and demonstrating the presence of issues a lot easier. In federal law, for example, you have to show an intent to discriminate. You have to show an extended history of discrimination, both at the institutional and at the social level. The California Voting Rights Act reduces this to a mathematical formula. Do members of a protected class group vote as a block? And if so, do their candidates tend to either not win, or perhaps do they not vote at the same margins as those of other classes or other groups within the district? And liability becomes a mathematical formula, a really simple mathematical formula. And because of this, to date, no jurisdiction has ever successfully won a California Voting Rights Act challenge. And as a result, there's been a statewide shift in how we elect members to local governments all throughout the state. At current time, these are, before the California Voting Rights Act, just 39 cities had some form of, including cities like Downey that had partly a by-district system and partly an at-large system. Today, 198 cities have switched from at-large to district elections in the last 20 years because of the California Voting Rights Act. At least 300 school districts almost 50 community college districts, and other special districts, including airport districts, water districts, healthcare districts, and many other kinds of special districts have made this transition as well. And the litigation history on this is, at this point, it's kind of an interesting case. There's been many settlements. There's been many letters sent, demand letters sent to jurisdictions. There's only been a handful of cases that have actually been tried in court. Of those cases, Palmdale and Santa Clara have reached completion, and both of those cities ended up switching to district elections. Santa Monica is kind of the infamous case because it's been dragged on for nearly 10 years now, and has recently received a Supreme Court verdict that returned it back to the district court, who sent it right back to the lowest level of courts in order to determine what level of discrimination you need to show in order to prove a California Voting Rights Act claim. But I'm happy to talk about Santa Monica in more detail. But the takeaway point is Santa Monica did not win that case. And to date, no jurisdiction has successfully challenged a California Voting Rights Act claim. And in place, we see the settlement agreements on the right-hand column that illustrate just some of the settlements that have gone to trial, have gone to court, and have a judge imposed an order. The reason we don't see more is because in 2017, the legislature passed AB 350, which set a cap on settlements if you made the transition to districts voluntarily after receiving a demand letter. And most jurisdictions since then have done so. The cap today is about 40,000. It started at 30 and has increased every year with inflation. And so this really brings us into our analysis of the district. Every districting process begins with the latest census results. So in our case, we have our 2020 census results, where we have a population of 84,198. We break that down demographically. The district as a whole, this is total population here, so it includes everyone counted as part of that census count, including children, including non-citizens, people not registered to vote, was just a majority Latino, 51% Latino. It also had 19% non-Hispanic white, 16% Asian Pacific Islander, and 12% African American. Below that, voting rights are for the citizen voting age population. The citizen voting age population is the population over 18 with U.S. citizenship. The courts often refer to this as the eligible voter count. And so for the purposes of the Voting Rights Act, the Federal Voting Rights Act here, oftentimes we look at citizen voting age population. In this case, we have slightly different numbers, and this reflects the different demographics of each community. Latinos as a whole generally tend to be younger, for example, and less likely to be U.S. citizens. And so we see that 51% total population becomes 46% Latino population. A small drop, but not a huge one compared to some of the other jurisdictions in the state. Similarly, we see that the African American and non-Hispanic white populations tend to be a little bit larger. That's because both groups have very high citizenship rates. And Asian Pacific Islander also drops from 16 to 14%. I would say the white, black, and Asian American numbers are very close to their margins of error between the data, between total and citizen voting age. But you can see those slight differences in the population. When we look at the district as a whole, we also include a lot of other fields we look at and that we can talk about in more detail. One of our key takeaway points is if we did have trustee areas, each of the 5 areas would contain approximately 16,840 residents. We use that total population to divide equally, as the Supreme Court requires, as a one person, one vote requirement. All the other demographic data we use as part of our analysis, particularly when we get into the process, as to help us understand communities of interest. We have a lot of different numbers here, a lot of information here. Depending on the city or depending on the school district and the jurisdiction, sometimes different factors are relevant. In some cities or some school districts, renters versus owners or single family and multifamily housing are very relevant. In others, much less so. And so these help us provide a better understanding of the community. As part of our voting rights analysis we did as part of this presentation, we did look at the distribution of each group across the district. One of the things we're looking for is areas where a particular group either predominates, as shown in the kind of pink and yellow, the brighter colors, or has a very low percentage, as in the blues and purple colors. So in this case, looking at where we see Latino eligible voters, we see that particularly throughout the city of Bellflower, especially north of the 91 freeway, Latinos make up a majority throughout most of that area. We see that in the southern part of the district, Lakewood, Cerritos, and south of the 91 freeway, Latinos tend to make up less of a percentage of the population. If we look at the Asian and African American numbers, we see that in that southeast corner where we have Cerritos and Lakewood coming together, we see a slight concentration of Asian Americans. We also see that there are African American population tends to be clustered around the 91 freeway in particular, in that corridor, around Flower, for example. This is not to say that this is representative of all of the different communities or neighborhoods. This is just a numerical look at the data. So for example, if we know about historic communities that are, for example, a specific Asian community, like a Japanese community in a particular neighborhood, that would certainly enter this process as a community of interest, specifically that neighborhood. And then here we can talk about more of our legal liability under the Voting Rights Act. We also did an analysis of our election history. We actually went back all the way to 2003 because as part of the process, we would want to look at whether or not candidates of various communities of color have run for office and whether or not they've been successful at running for office. And so we've looked at the past 20 years of election results. We could go back farther. I tell you, we don't see a lot of candidates of color running before 2003. But it appears that, and you know, we did our best job working with the district to identify the ethnicity of the different candidates who are running. But it appears that Latinos appeared on the ballot 7 times, winning 5 times. And that includes one Latino candidate who ran and won 4 times. A Filipino candidate ran in 2003 and 2005, losing both times. And an African American candidate appeared on the ballot 4 times, winning twice. And so that kind of is our brief history, or brief window into the election history of the district. Note that a plaintiff would be able to basically pick and choose which elections they would want to look at to determine whether or not there was racially polarized voting. But elections with a particular candidate of a particular ethnicity are generally the ones that they would look at first. And so our overview of our results is that you know, the district is very diverse. It is almost near majority Latino population. It is majority by total population, almost majority by citizen voting age population. But we also have substantial African American, Asian American, and non-Hispanic white communities within the district as well. And that the election history does offer opportunities to look at elections. We have not done any sort of racially polarized voting analysis. Whether or not we would want to present that openly or work with your district attorney in order to discuss those results, that would be a different question. But there certainly are elections that we could look at to see if there was racially polarized voting. We did look at some test maps that we would draw to determine Voting Rights Act compliance. And we can say that it is possible to draw majority Latino trustee areas. In particular, 3 majority Latino trustee areas is likely in a map that would meet state and federal guidelines. The maximum Asian American or African American percentage, however, is about 25%. So that wouldn't meet the federal Voting Rights Act requirements. However, you know, that doesn't this doesn't preclude drawing areas that have a disproportionate influence based on communities of interest testimony or feedback. And I know a lot of this is technical, but I just want to conclude, if we did want to look at drawing districts for the 2024 election, we are working under a slightly tight timeline. This is driven by the state's requirement that we have the district lines into the registrar early enough that candidates in November can file papers to run for office and have a full campaign season to do so. In addition, school districts have an extra step compared to every other jurisdiction type out there. Any districts that the school district adopts would have to go before the county committee for review, and that's the County Committee on School District Organization. That would have to be in June. So working backwards from that, we would want to get this process started probably in April at the latest, and kind of work in April and May on going through the required hearings. And I can speak to the requirements of the process if you have any questions about that. But to summarize, you'll have to have a minimum of 5 public hearings. And so working through April and May to do that in order to approve those by June, to get those to the county committee with enough time to get them established for November. If, however, that timeline is a little too crunched, it is possible to adopt a resolution of intent and make the change for 2026 to allow for more engagement and more community participation. The resolution of intent, though, is the important part because that signals to those attorneys out there who send the demand letters that the district is already in the process of making this transition. So I'm happy to answer any questions about this if you have any, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Ms. Garza.
Thank you, President Critchfield. Thank you for your presentation. It's very thorough. My question is, oh goodness, which option would you recommend that we take at this point? Do we take the short option, or, I mean, we're going to decide, but, you know, being an expert in these matters, what is your opinion?
Sure. I mean, so I'm not going to be able to tell the board exactly how to decide, but I think that the trade-off is obviously, if we get started now, we have 90 days to complete the process under which no group can send the district a letter. We would have to finish within 90 days anyway in order to comply with the requirements for the 2024 election. So that would, excuse my metaphor, rip the Band-Aid off and get the process completed. However, this is a timeline that may require 1 or 2 special meetings. It may require, it certainly requires getting started as soon as possible and getting the go-ahead and working at the calendar of meetings and all that. If we don't do this for this November, then that gives you extended times. But once you're out of the 90 days, you're out of the safe harbor, and even if you have a stated plan, you're in a little bit of a gray area between the end of that 90 days and when you would complete the process. Now, it's unlikely a lawyer, they would be able to go into court and say, well, they're not doing anything because you've stated we're going to do it for this date, we're going to get started, here's our schedule. But at the same time, that's always a risk.
Have you seen successful changes made within the timeline that you are suggesting?
So I have certainly seen districts do it faster than this, especially under court order. Sometimes we've had, 6 weeks from the beginning to the end of the process, not even 2 months. On the other hand, I've certainly seen districts choose to wait and do a much more engaged process by waiting. La Palma did that, for example.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. Dr. Sue?
Thank you for the presentation. And I was curious to find out, how do you work with the board in the mapping process, breaking it into different sections?
Sure. The districting timeline actually requires us to have 2 separate sections of the process. The first section is hearings on the criteria in education, where we kind of lay out the criteria and the requirements, and we look at the numbers in more detail. And at that point, the board and members of the community have the opportunity to make comments and suggestions related to what they would like to see in the maps. At that point, after those first 2 hearings, we go away, we draw some maps, generally 3 or 4 different options based on board and community testimony. And we come back, we present those at our 3rd public hearing. And then the state requires that 3rd and 4th public hearing to take testimony on the maps, what works, what doesn't work, what needs to be changed, and so on.
So can you give me an example of what variables you look at in regards to identifying
I'll give
what
you
areas?
a quick rundown of the criteria. Maps are required to have equal population. They're also required to comply with the Federal Voting Rights Act, which in this case would apply relative to the Latino community in particular. We would also have to, and then we were dealing with the state criteria at that point. The state requires districts be contiguous, which means that they have one outside border. You can't have a little bit of, like, you can't take Cerritos and then downtown Bellflower and put them in the same district with no physical connection. That's what contiguity is. Next, they require we look at communities of interest and neighborhoods. So they define that as socioeconomic or geographic areas that should be kept together for the purpose of their effective and fair representation. And that can be everything from attendance areas to areas that have a higher percentage of renters or multifamily housing, to areas that the community can define or board members can define as a well-established traditional community that people in the neighborhood would identify with. After that, we have to look at city boundaries. So we have to account for the minimizing splits of Bellflower, Lakewood, and Cerritos. And then after that, we have to concern ourselves with following major roads. And then lastly, compactness. And the law defines compactness as not bypassing one group of people to get to a more distant group of people.
Okay, so if you have, you mean a certain ethnic group of people?
So normally when we look at that, we talk about not just the ethnicity itself. That actually is a potential violation of federal law. But we talk about all the factors that make that a coherent and cohesive community.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, one of my favorite examples is, in the city of Anaheim, Little Arabia has no official designation, but everybody could point to many factors that create a community of interest, generally along Brookhurst, for about a stretch of 2 miles, and it was businesses, it was mosques and other places of worship, it was where they send their kids to school. And so that's what we're looking for when it comes to community. Many factors that kind of work together to form a coherent and cohesive community. I recently worked with the city of Irvine, and one of the things they were looking at distinguishing was a traditional Korean community in one neighborhood of the city versus a Chinese community in a neighboring part of the city, arguing that they had 2 separate communities. And they pointed to factors like supermarkets, the churches, the cultural centers, and other factors that create those communities. And what I generally say is a lot of times ethnicity it's a shorthand in a lot of people's minds for what is a number of other factors that really define that area, whether it's employment, whether it's cultural, whether it's educational, or just shared issues and history, patterns of immigration to the United States. And all of those are valid factors to consider. And I'll say we don't have a criteria slide in here. During the first 2 hearings, we really get much more into communities of interest than I did in this presentation.
Thank you for the questions. Ms. Stewart?
I just had one question. The district that I'm teaching in is going through this right now, and one thing they considered was variables like incumbency and things like that. How would that work if we considered things like that?
So that's a really interesting point. I don't know whether the district you work for did this before or after the new year, But starting January 1st, there was a new law that came into effect that prohibits the use of incumbency, partisanship, or potential political challengers or candidates from being considered as a factor in the districting process. That's a new law, the Fair Maps Act of 2023, but it's something that we have, that has changed the nature of schools redistricting. It used to be schools not only could take that into account, but we could often balance it with all the other criteria that I mentioned. Now we have a flat prohibition, just the same way cities and counties do as well.
Thank you.
So I do have one question. Now, we have a very cohesive and loving board, and last thing I want to do is see that not exist. But I have seen districting not go too well in some areas. What has been your experience with at-large going to districts?
So what I would say is that I have certain, like everything, there are trade-offs. There are definitely, you'll definitely hear from neighborhoods that feel like they haven't had representation, say that now they have somebody from their neighborhood. And I'll say, I don't know for the record where any board member lives. Sometimes we have seen that a particular neighborhood or community is underserved because they haven't had board members who've come from that area. That's not always the case. In many cases, the board members are divided throughout the district, and districting doesn't actually change that whatsoever. One thing I have seen a lot of school districts in particular do is work on bylaws and rules to help make sure to lock in any sort of issues that might stem from districting, like only concern themselves with one particular area of the district. And so in particular, I know that like Magnolia and Cypress Elementaries both put new board structures into place to make sure that on certain types of subcommittees, there has to be people who live in different areas, different parts of the district.
Thank you. Dr. Hassan, do you have another question?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't clear it, but I do have a question. Do you mind if I go ahead and ask it?
Go for it.
So recently, we've had a huge, because of immigration, like you mentioned, of Coptic Egyptian, and kind of like you were talking about Little Arabia. They have their own church and they have their own stores and have really integrated well in our schools and in our community. So does that count as part of what you said as non-white?
So
how do you distinguish, like the example you gave, and then how does it break down to our different groups?
Yeah. So we use, the definitions used are ones that have been established both in the original Voting Rights Act and the federal court decisions interpreting it over the last 50, 60 years. And so so what I would say is that people from the Middle East and North Africa, for the purposes of the census and for voting rights issues, have been classified to date as non-Hispanic white. So they're counted in those non-Hispanic white percentages in numbers. Now, that doesn't prevent those communities having a community of interest. And, we kept Little Arabia together in Anaheim because its residents identified it as a community of interest.
Mm-hmm.
And so just because it doesn't rise to the level of Federal Voting Rights Act Section 2 concern, doesn't mean it's not something that we need to take into consideration as part of our process. And so if there is a neighborhood or an area where we know these businesses are located, we know the church is, we know that a lot of immigrants are settling, then we would want to make sure to define that neighborhood and keep it together.
I see. So when you do the mapping, you consider that. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So we can consider that as a community of interest, so very high on our list.
Thank you, Dr. Hassan. Ms. Stewart?
One last question. Our cities are pretty much all in districts now. Do we look at their city lines when we consider our maps to kind of align them, or are they completely separate?
So you certainly can look. I can tell you from our numbers, about 20% of the district's population is in Lakewood, about 3 to 4% is in Cerritos, and the rest is in Bellflower. So what's going to happen is the Bellflower Council districts might offer some guidance, but Lakewood, almost certainly most of Lakewood is going to end up at least in one district, if not all of it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. I do have one more question. You went over it, and I was following. I swear I was following. But the from trustee area and by trustee area, can you separate those two one more time for me?
Sure. So in at large, everybody lives everywhere, anywhere they want in the district. All the voters can vote for them. In from trustee areas, representatives have to live in a specific district, in a specific area.
But it's all.
But then the election is held district-wide.
Okay.
In the by trustee area system, voters within that area are the only ones who can vote on that representative.
Okay, I feel like that's the one is probably more common, right? The by trustee area.
Yes. So there's a number of cities that have legacy from trustee area systems that have recently switched. So because of the Voting Rights Act, Alhambra for one, Downey is another, that used to use some form of the from district or from trustee area system. And they've switched to the by trustee area system. We include it up because we hear about it from time to time from people who kind of maybe may work or know somebody in one of these.
And why is that they're switching from trustee area to by trustee area? Is it?
So under the California Voting Rights Act, if the election is held at large, it's considered an at-large system. So the Voting Rights Act does not distinguish between the first and the second.
Got it. Okay. Cool. Thank you for clarifying. I appreciate it. Ms. Stewart? Oh, no? Take backs?
Oh, no, I didn't clear it. Sorry.
Oh. And Student Board Member Lynch, do you have any questions?
No question.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all the information. We truly appreciate it. And at this time, the board will be taking a 5-minute break. Board is now back from a brief recess at 7:05. We'll now continue on with discussion. Does the board have any more questions or any discussion?
So are we going to be making a decision at this time?
At this time, I think we'd be offering direction to council.
Direction to council, and based on that direction, we'll either engage with NDC to continue the process, because as you saw, whatever decision is made, there are advantages and disadvantages. If a decision is made tonight to proceed with that process, the timeline would be slightly accelerated. So I would need to schedule with them how to go about and create the proper timeline. If a notice of intent is put forth, then at that time, again, we do carry that slight risk when we're outside that 90-day window. So ultimately, it's the board's decision, but we do need direction on it, whether to proceed, delay, or not move forward.
Thank you. Ms. Garza?
Thank you, President Critchfield. Just to confirm, we would have to add on special meetings to be able to work within that timeline, correct?
That would help. I don't think it's 100% necessary, but it certainly does ease the pressure on NDC to be able to actually deliver the results that the district would be looking for and allow for proper public input.
And what would that public I mean, it's a question for you. What would that public input look like? And would that be enough time?
So the one of the big reasons for special meetings, especially at certain stages in the process, is to really focus the conversation in on the districting process, either by holding the first two hearings back to back or closer in time than your typical board meeting, to kind of really set the process moving with maps coming out sooner rather than later, or during the map drawing process to allow another round of revision if needed before the final map is selected and sent to the county committee. So it does allow us that flexibility in order to do that with and schedule it at a time that maybe is more convenient or convenient for residents of the district as well. We did work out a timeline where I think you can do it with your remaining hearings in April and May, I mean. But certainly that would, that is definitely using up every hearing we have from now until June.
Thank you. Ms. Stewart.
I have another question, sorry. Do you think there's any advantages or disadvantages to doing this during a presidential election versus a non-presidential election?
That's an interesting question.
Sorry, that's just what I was thinking.
Having done having done some of these meetings during the masking debates, and especially we were doing the redistricting in the middle of the masking debate. I can't imagine anything getting as little high tension as that. I would say that I don't think it's going to do much. I mean, hopefully during this presidential election year, people will be a little bit more attuned to the federal process and be more interested in what's going on at the state and local levels as well. But either way, I'll say this in terms of election, the same number of districts or trustee areas will be up for election as positions at large.
So it's pretty much the same process no matter if we do it now or in 2026?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Ms. Garza?
Thank you. There tends to be more voter turnout during those elections, correct? So would we be getting a larger, spectrum of participants within those questionnaires and community, involvement?
So I think that it certainly is possible that people are more primed because of the general discussion going on, that they might be more looking for this. And when we send out our notice, that this is happening, when we send it home with the kids in their folders, that if parents see it, they might give it a second look now that they may not in the beginning of 2025.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. Ms. Stewart?
I guess from hearing all the information, and I feel like this is just inevitable, for me, I would want to proceed and move forward. That would be my direction.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Dr. Al-Hassan?
I agree.
Ms. Garza?
Agree as well.
I agree as well, so we'll move forward and to next steps.
Thank you. So we'll get with NDC and we'll begin preparing that scheduled timeline and notify the board of any special meetings that might need to take place. And then we'll also proceed with the community outreach portion as well.
Great. Thank you. And thank you again for the presentation. All right, at this time, we'll move on to our public hearing. Public hearing on Sunshine initial proposal submitted by the Bellflower Teachers Association. At this time, I'll start by declaring the public hearing open. Would anyone from the, I gotta do this, hold on. At this time, I will start by declaring the public hearing open. Would anyone from the public like to speak on this item? Oh. Uh-oh.
I would love to say one thing. Being a member of the executive board of the union for a really long time, I'm speaking for myself, Robin Moots-Balog. I'm not speaking on behalf of our union. I always like to be very clear who I'm speaking for. And this is kind of my appeal to you about our bargaining situation and you. In years past, we have shown up. We have not ever been met with a proposal from our district. Nobody has come with asks or requests. We have given hours. We have been made to sit for hours in a room to come back to be told that they have no authorization or authority to bargain. It has been a waste of time. Our teachers are out of the classrooms. Kids have subs. So my ask is that our district values your students' time, your teachers' time, the community's time, and that you come prepared. We need you to come with what you would like to, in good faith, bargain for, because we have not seen that ever. So it's a huge ask from us. Our bargaining team gets very frustrated because we pull them out of classrooms. They spend days preparing. They use their own time, not even classroom time. And to be met with zero preparation and zero caring, it really makes us feel not valued. So that's my ask to the board, to please ensure that we come prepared for bargaining. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there any discussion from the board? Going once, going twice? All right. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Roll call, please.
Student Board Member Lynch? Aye. Dr. Alhesson?
Aye.
Mrs. Garza?
Aye.
Ms. Stewart?
Aye.
Mr. Critchfield?
Aye. Do we have any items to withhold from the consent agenda this evening? Hearing none.
Mr. President, if I could
Sure.
just interject.
Hop on in.
So no motion is needed to close the public hearing, but a motion would be needed to approve item 11.11. The motion to close the public hearing is not really germane to it, so we need an additional motion to approve item 11.11.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to approve item, what's the item number? Do I have a motion to approve item 11.1?
I move to approve item 11.1.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Student Board Member Lynch? Aye. Dr. Alhesson?
Aye.
Mrs. Garza?
Aye.
Ms. Stewart?
Aye.
Mr. Critchfield?
Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to the consent agenda. Do we have any items to withhold from the consent agenda this evening? Hearing none. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Student Board Member Lynch? Aye. Dr. Alhesson?
Aye.
Mrs. Garza?
Aye.
Ms. Stewart?
Aye.
Mr. Critchfield?
Aye. And now moving on to board communications. Let's go ahead and start with Dr. O'Hesson.
Thank you. It was a busy week for me, but mostly with my work on the Governor's Committee and Janice Hahn on Public Social Services. I did attend our YMCA event where it was a great night to see not only all of the service providers, but also the recognition that we received from the YMCA in regards to our after-school programs. What else did I do? I also was involved in, I met with Lisa Vizito, our interim superintendent, on some goals that I'd like to see happening in a lot of my areas. I'm sure all of you well know is on our students with disabilities and getting access and starting our parent advisory group. So those are still top on my list, as well as our student safety program. And with that, I'd just like to wish everyone a very safe and happy Easter break, whatever holiday, spring break, and just like to leave with a positive note. If you want to be successful, you will need to be your own cheerleader. So you must push yourself because no one else is going to do it for you. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dr. Alhassan. Ms. Garza.
Thank you, President Critchfield. I actually didn't attend very many of those events because they were scheduled during my work hours, unfortunately. But I do want to wish everyone a, happy and restful spring break. Please be safe out there and come back, renewed to us so that way we can continue our best work during the remainder of the year with our kids. And I'm also very happy to have seen City Council in our boardroom. It's nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. Ms. Stewart.
Good evening. On March 12th, I attended the Cal Apps meeting. We had a really good presentation from a student who's going to compete in the Skills USA for draping, and he showed us the beginning stages and how to create certain looks by pinning the pieces on and draping, and I just want to wish him and all of our students good luck in their competition in April. On March 14th, I met with President Critchfield and Mrs. Acevedo. On March 18th, I attended the LACSTA meeting via Zoom. We had several presentations. We had one from Kids Artistic Sense, and they had an art in a box, and it was a really cool thing that they could buy for the classroom, and it had all the materials in it, and the kids absolutely loved it. And we also had a presentation from CSBA on the importance of the governance handbook. So it's very important that we have a mission, a vision, beliefs, norms, policies, and procedures. These protocols are so important and should be reviewed annually, and I'm excited to see what our subcommittee comes up with in the future. And also this week, I was able to read through our FCMAT report in its entirety. I read it a few times. I do know that we have a lot of work to do, but I am glad that we are looking at the recommendations. We're looking at where we can learn and make corrections, where we can improve, and how we can make our special ed department even better for our students. I believe that our interim superintendent, Acevedo, is already making some great adjustments, and I'm confident that she's going to do a good job of getting us back on track. So I had a lot of calls. I had a lot of people talk to me about this. I understand that people are frustrated and disappointed, but I believe that it's a positive thing because now we can address it and we can address the issues now instead of later. And then lastly, this is kind of going off script a little bit, but in my reflection of last meeting and just thinking about the governance handbook and things that are coming up, I know we talk a lot about trust. And we've been advised regularly by many people and entities that we should trust each other, the board should trust each other, we should trust the district, they should trust us. And I agree, but for me, I've kind of changed my views on that a little bit because trust is something that's earned, and you don't gain that right away, and a lot of us don't know each other. So for me, it's all about communication and data. So what I want to see is just, instead of focusing on trust, because I don't know that that's going to happen, and it's okay. I'm okay with that, because again, we don't know each other that well. So I would like to focus on communication, focusing on honesty. The entire community has been asking for that, communication and data. So that is going to be my priority this year and my vision. And I believe that those are the keys to transparency and success. We discuss things, we communicate, we collaborate, and we create a vision. And the district provides information and support through data. So I believe in the last month, our communication has improved a lot. And I hope we continue to be honest and transparent and then build the trust that we all desire. So I know that we all want to work as a team. We want to work with the district. They want to work with us. So for me, it's not going to be trusting each other. It's going to be communication. So I hope that it continues to improve and we continue to build off of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Student Board Member Lynch.
Good evening. On Monday, student representatives from Mayfair, Somerset, and Bellflower met at the Superintendent's Advisory Board, actually here in this room. We went over some topics on Cal Apps, but we started with an activity that had us doing Lego projects where we had a lead engineer and also like a lead builder. And basically the project was to make a Lego without knowing what you're building, just based off communication. And just like how bad communication could lead to failure of building the Lego project that you wanted, I think it just shows a lesson of like communication overall, like Ms. Stewart said. That's it. I think it was very successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lynch. For me, just three things. One, I want to say thank you to everyone that spoke before a closed session earlier today. I believe that our partnerships in the community are very important. We have many really great partnerships, and many of them have been around for a very long time. And it's important to honor those relationships and value them, and we have a lot of them. And I think as board members, it's great for us to hear the good things that are happening in our community and the people that are doing good things in this community. I actually would love to see more of that at our board meetings, period. number one, it's great to hear that it's happening, but it's also very educational for board members as well to know that those things are happening and how we can support as well. So I want to say thank you to everybody that came earlier. One update, Vice President Stewart already touched on it, but there was the FICMAT audit, and it did give us a number of recommendations that we are carefully considering and implementing. And I will say thank you to staff and Lisa. You are doing amazing work, and I know that a lot of people can't see that work all the time. And again, I think it's really up to us to share with the community the work that is being done, because there is a lot. And in that, I would like to start an ad hoc committee to work collaboratively with the staff and support the staff. So if it's okay, Ms. Stewart and Dr. Alhassan, you'll be on that committee and working with the district to address the recommendations in the FICMAT, and that way at our board meetings we can report out, because I do think that if we're on committees during your board report, it's very good to talk about what you did in committee to keep everybody up to date. So we can do that going forward. So thank you for serving on that. And I know there's been a lot of changes recently, and it's inevitable that some will find that hard. But I think there are some areas in our district that not only can be improved, but need to, in order to face the challenges that lie ahead for districts across the state. I've learned a lot since being elected to this board, but the thing I've learned the most is that we really do have amazing, passionate, and caring people here in BUSD. And I think everybody wants to do the right thing. So when we're guided by that, what's right and what's necessary, there's an endless well of strength. And I think that's what we need to pull from. And I think that we need to come together. We need to be positive. We need to be the change that we want to see and do the right thing for our kids. Even when it's tough decisions, we all have to come together and just know that it's all for the kids. And I think we're on track to doing that. And I want to continue to see that for the remainder of the year. With that, if there's no objection, this meeting is adjourned at 7:25 until the regular board meeting to be held Thursday, April 11th, 2024. Thank you. I always do.